The communication hub on Station Omega-7 never stopped humming. 24 hours a day, messages flowed between star systems like rivers of light carrying news, trade agreements, and diplomatic correspondence across the galaxy. Every civilized world contributed to this endless stream of data except one. Riley adjusted her headset and stared at the blue-green planet floating on her screen. Earth hung in space like a jewel, its white clouds swirling over continents that showed clear signs of intelligent life. Cities spread across the landmasses like glowing webs, while strange electromagnetic signals pulsed from various locations. Yet for all their monitoring equipment, all their advanced sensors, and all their attempts at contact, the humans remained completely silent. "Commander, we're picking up more of those radio transmissions," reported Tech Specialist Davis from his console. "Same pattern as before. Multiple frequencies, different languages, but none of them directed at us." Riley had been studying humanity for 6 months now, and the puzzle only grew more complex. The Galactic Survey Division had been watching Earth for over 3,000 years, documenting the rise and fall of human civilizations. Every other species in the galaxy had eventually looked up at the stars and wondered if they were alone. Every other species had developed the technology to reach out and make contact. But humans seemed trapped in their own little bubble, fighting endless wars and ignoring the vast universe around them. "What about their space program?" Riley asked, scrolling through the latest intelligence reports. "Still primitive," Davis replied. "They've managed to put a few small stations in orbit and land some robots on nearby planets, but nothing that suggests they're ready for real space travel. At their current rate of development, it'll be centuries before they discover faster than light." "Travel," Riley nodded, but something bothered her about the whole situation. The humans weren't stupid. Their technology was advancing rapidly in some areas. They had developed computers that rivaled early galactic models, weapons that could destroy entire cities, and communication networks that spanned their planet. So why hadn't they figured out they were being watched? The answer, according to the Galactic Council, was simple. Humans were too busy fighting each other to look beyond their own world. The planet was divided into hundreds of competing nations, each jealously guarding their territory and resources. While other species had unified before reaching for the stars, humanity seemed determined to remain fractured and isolated. "Commander, we're receiving a priority transmission from Council headquarters," announced Communications Officer Lane. Riley activated the secure channel, and the familiar face of Council Director Webb appeared on her screen. Webb was a veteran administrator who had overseen first contact procedures for dozens of species over the past century. "Commander Riley, I trust your observation mission is proceeding smoothly?" "Yes, sir. We've maintained our position in the outer system without detection. Our analysis of human society continues to show a species unready for galactic contact." Webb's expression grew serious. "That may be about to change. The Council has been debating Earth's status for months now. Some members believe we should make contact regardless of their development level. The Rigelian Empire in particular has been pushing for immediate integration." Riley felt a chill. The Rigelians were known for their aggressive expansion policies. They believed that any species capable of spaceflight should be brought into the galactic community, ready or not. Their track record with forced integration was mixed at best. "What are your recommendations regarding humanity's readiness?" Webb continued. Riley looked back at her screens, where Earth continued its slow rotation. Cities blazed with light while other areas remained dark. Weather patterns moved across the continents, and the thin line of atmosphere glowed at the planet's edge. It looked so peaceful from this distance, but she knew the surface was anything but calm. "Sir, based on our observations, I believe humanity needs more time. They're still engaged in multiple conflicts across their planet. Their political systems are unstable, and they show concerning levels of aggression toward their own species. Introducing them to galactic civilization at this stage could be catastrophic." Webb nodded slowly. "I tend to agree, but the pressure is mounting. The Council is planning a formal vote next month on whether to initiate contact protocols. If they Decide to proceed, you'll be tasked with making first contact. The transmission ended, leaving Riley alone with her thoughts. She turned back to her observation duties, but her mind kept returning to the same troubling questions. Why were humans so violent compared to other species? Why hadn't they unified like every other civilization in the galaxy? And most importantly, why did she have the growing feeling that humanity was hiding something? Davis interrupted her thoughts. Commander, we're detecting some unusual activity on the planet's surface. There's been a significant increase in electromagnetic emissions from several locations. It's almost like they're trying to scan space. Riley frowned. Trying to scan space? That's impossible. Their technology isn't advanced enough to detect our cloaked vessels. That's what I thought too, but the pattern is very specific. It's almost like they know exactly where to look. Riley studied the data, her unease growing. The electromagnetic pulses were indeed focused on specific regions of space, including areas where other observation vessels were stationed. It had to be a coincidence. Human technology was centuries behind galactic standard. There was no way they could have developed sensors capable of penetrating council cloaking technology. Keep monitoring those signals, she ordered, and increase our own stealth protocols. If humanity is developing more advanced sensors, we need to know about it immediately. Over the following days, the strange signals continued. Each time, they seemed to focus on areas of space where council vessels were operating. Riley found herself studying the patterns obsessively, trying to find some explanation that didn't involve the impossible. But the more she analyzed the data, the more convinced she became that something was very wrong with their assessment of human capabilities. The breakthrough came when Davis detected a brief transmission that seemed to originate from Earth's surface and travel directly to a supposedly empty region of space. The transmission was encrypted using methods that shouldn't exist in human technology, and it lasted exactly long enough to send a detailed message. Commander, Davis said quietly, I think we need to consider the possibility that humanity knows. We're here, Riley stared at the data, her mind racing. If humans had known about galactic civilization for years or even decades, it would explain so much. Their apparent isolation, their continued conflicts, their resistance to unification. They weren't a primitive species stumbling toward the stars. They were a species that had chosen to remain hidden while they studied their watchers. The implications were staggering. If humanity had been observing galactic civilization while pretending to be primitive, what else were they hiding? What technologies had they developed in secret? And most importantly, what were they planning to do with that knowledge? Riley realized that Earth's silence wasn't ignorance, it was strategy. And if she was right, the galaxy was about to discover just how dangerous a quiet world could be. The elevator descended through solid rock for what felt like an eternity. Dr. Alan Mitchell watched the floor numbers tick by on the display, each one marking another 100 feet deeper into the mountain. Level 15, 20, 25. The facility buried beneath the Colorado peaks was one of humanity's most closely guarded secrets, and Alan had called it home for the past 8 years. His security badge opened the final door, revealing a laboratory that would have amazed the galaxy's greatest scientists. Workstations lined the walls, each one focused on a different piece of alien technology. In the center of the room, a partially disassembled alien probe sat on an examination table, its exotic materials gleaming under the bright lights. "Morning, Dr. Mitchell," called out his assistant, Tom Bradley, from across the room. "We've made significant progress on the power system overnight. The energy cells are definitely using some form of zero-point manipulation." Alan nodded, but his attention was focused on the secure communication terminal in the corner. The red light was blinking, indicating a priority message from the surface. He activated the system with his biometric signature and read the brief text that appeared on the screen. The Galactic Council had finally decided to make contact. After decades of watching and waiting, they were sending an ambassador to Earth. The meeting would take place in 3 days at a location in neutral territory. Everything humanity had prepared for was about to begin. "Tom, initiate Protocol 7, Alan said calmly. Full activation of all surface assets. It's time. Bradley's eyes widened. Protocol 7 was the signal they had all been waiting for. Across the globe, similar facilities would be receiving the same message. Hidden bases would come online, weapon systems would charge, and carefully placed agents would assume their positions. Earth was about to reveal its true nature to the galaxy. The alien probe on the table was just one of hundreds that had been recovered over the years. Most had been salvaged from crashes, but some had been captured using methods the galactic community couldn't imagine. Humanity had been reverse engineering alien technology for decades, always careful to hide their advances behind a facade of primitive development. Alan walked over to a wall display showing Earth's defensive network. Red dots marked orbital platforms that officially didn't exist, while blue lines traced communication networks that used alien technology to monitor galactic transmissions. The planet looked peaceful from space, but it was actually one of the most heavily defended worlds in the galaxy. The ambassador is Keth of the Regelian Empire, Alan read from his briefing notes. He's conducted first contact with over 30 species. Standard approach is to demonstrate peaceful intent, offer basic technology, and gradually introduce the new species to galactic civilization. Will the president go through with the plan? Bradley asked. President Morgan understands. What's at stake? We get one chance to do this right. If we fail, humanity becomes another client species under galactic rule. If we succeed, we change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The next 3 days passed in a blur of final preparations. Hidden sensors were positioned around the contact site, teams of specialists took their positions, and weapon systems were armed and ready. The world held its breath as the moment of truth approached. Ambassador Keth's shuttle landed exactly on schedule in the remote field that had been chosen for the meeting. The vessel was sleek and clearly advanced, but Alan's teams had studied similar designs for years. They knew its capabilities, its weaknesses, and exactly how to disable it. President Morgan emerged from a simple transport vehicle. Accompanied by a small group of advisors and security personnel, she looked nervous, but determined as she walked toward the alien shuttle. The galaxy was watching, expecting to see humanity's first stumbling steps into a larger universe. The ambassador was tall and elegant, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. He approached with his hands empty, universal translators allowing smooth conversation. His first words were carefully chosen to put the humans at ease. Greetings, people of Earth. I am Ambassador Keth of the Galactic Council. We have watched your world for many generations and believe you are ready to join the greater community of civilized species. President Morgan responded with appropriate curiosity and caution. We had no idea we were being observed. This is quite overwhelming for our people. That is natural, Keth replied smoothly. Every species experiences this moment. We are here to help guide you through the transition. We offer friendship, technology, and a place in galactic civilization. The conversation continued for several minutes, with Keth explaining galactic law, trade opportunities, and the benefits of council membership. He demonstrated a medical device that could heal wounds instantly, offered star charts showing nearby inhabited systems, and spoke of the wonders that awaited humanity among the stars. President Morgan asked thoughtful questions about galactic government, trade requirements, and the obligations of membership. She seemed genuinely interested in learning about humanity's potential future. Ambassador Keth began to relax, confident that this first contact was proceeding exactly as planned. That was when the trap closed. The electromagnetic pulse hit Keth's shuttle without warning, disabling its engines, weapons, and communication systems. The ambassador spun around in shock as human soldiers emerged from concealment, their weapons trained on him and his small diplomatic team. I'm sorry, Ambassador, President Morgan said, her nervous demeanor vanishing. But humanity must decline your generous offer. Keth's expression shifted from confusion to alarm as he realized what was happening. This is impossible. Your technology cannot penetrate our defenses. You are a developing species. We were never a developing species, Morgan replied. We've been studying your technology for decades. We know about your surveillance networks, your military capabilities, and your political weaknesses. We've been preparing for this moment for a very long time. The same scene was playing out across the globe. Every alien observation post, every hidden sensor, every cloaked vessel in the solar system found itself under attack by weapons that shouldn't exist. Humanity's carefully maintained facade of primitive isolation crumbled away to reveal a species that had been preparing for war. Dr. Mitchell watched the operation unfold from his command center deep underground. Status reports flowed in from around the world as one alien facility after another went dark. The Galactic Watchers had become the watched, and they were completely unprepared for humanity's true capabilities. Phase 1 complete, reported Colonel Hayes from the surface. All alien assets in the solar system have been neutralized. We've captured 43 alien personnel and secured 17 intact vessels. Alan nodded grimly. This was just the beginning. The galaxy would soon discover that Earth's silence had been the calm before the storm. Humanity had spent centuries fighting each other, learning warfare in ways that peaceful galactic civilization had forgotten. Now those hard-won lessons would be turned against a complacent universe. Ambassador Keth and his team were taken to a secure facility, where they would be questioned extensively. Their knowledge of galactic politics, military capabilities, and technological secrets would give humanity the intelligence needed for the next phase of their plan. The galaxy had expected to welcome a new junior partner. Instead, they were about to face an enemy that understood them better than they understood themselves. Earth was no longer quiet, and the universe would never be the same. Emergency sessions were not uncommon in the Galactic Council chambers, but nothing had prepared the assembled representatives for the crisis they now faced. Council Director Webb stood at the center of the Great Hall, watching as delegates from across the galaxy argued with increasing desperation about humanity's impossible actions. 17 observation vessels captured simultaneously, Webb announced, his voice cutting through the chaos. 43 personnel missing, presumed captured. Every surveillance network in the Sol system has gone dark. Ladies and gentlemen, we are dealing with a species that has been deceiving us for decades. The Regelian delegate, an imposing figure named Thorne, slammed his fist on the podium. This is impossible. Our technology is centuries ahead of anything those primitives could develop. They barely have spaceflight. Apparently we were wrong about that, replied the Centauri representative, her voice tight with worry. The electromagnetic pulse weapons they used were specifically designed to disable our shield generators. They knew exactly where to strike. Webb pulled up a holographic display showing the synchronized attacks. Red markers indicated the locations of every alien facility that had been compromised. The precision was terrifying. Humanity had somehow mapped every hidden base, every cloaked vessel, every observation post in their solar system. The question we must ask ourselves, Webb continued, is how long they have been planning this. Our analysis suggests they have been reverse engineering our technology for at least 50 years, possibly longer. General Beck had been monitoring the galactic emergency session from his command center orbiting Earth. Stolen communication equipment allowed humanity to listen in on the Council's most secure channels. Every word of their panic was being recorded and analyzed by his intelligence teams. Sir, we're detecting increased military activity around the Council's main fleet bases, reported his tactical officer. It looks like they're preparing for a major operation, Beck nodded. This was exactly what they had expected. The galaxy's initial shock would quickly turn to anger, and anger would lead to retaliation. Humanity needed to be ready for whatever came next. Activate defensive grid. Level 3, he ordered. Bring all orbital platforms online and prepare the mobile fleets. If they want to fight, we'll give them one they'll never forget. The defensive network surrounding Earth was the culmination of decades of secret development. Orbital stations, disguised as space debris, housed weapons systems that could destroy incoming vessels. Asteroid mining facilities were actually military bases equipped with the galaxy's own technology. Even the moon had been hollowed out to serve as a massive command center. Ambassador Keth sat in his detention cell, staring at the walls that held Him prisoner. The humans had been polite but firm during their questioning sessions. They wanted to know about galactic military doctrine, trade networks, and political divisions. What disturbed him most was how much they already knew. "You've been studying us for a very long time," Keth said, when Dr. Mitchell entered for another interrogation session. "Longer than you might imagine," Mitchell replied, settling into the chair across from him. "We've been intercepting your communications, analyzing your technology, and mapping your weaknesses for decades. The galaxy assumes that primitive species are no threat, so you've been remarkably careless about security." "What do you want from us?" Keth asked. "We want to be left alone," Mitchell said simply. "But we know that's not how the galaxy works. Sooner or later, you would have demanded that we join your system, follow your laws, and accept your authority. We decided to change the rules before that happened." Back in the council chambers, the debate was reaching a fever pitch. The Arcturus delegate was calling for immediate negotiations, while the Rigelian faction demanded military action. The Centauri Federation wanted to impose economic sanctions, as if humanity had any galactic trade to disrupt. "We need to send a message," Thorne declared. "No primitive species can be allowed to attack Council forces without consequences. I propose we assemble a fleet and demand the immediate return of our personnel." "And if they refuse?" asked the Centauri representative. "Then we destroy them," Thorne replied coldly. "We have planet-killing weapons for situations like this. One demonstration of our power will end this rebellion before it spreads." Webb felt a chill at those words. The Council had sworn never to use planet killers again after the disasters of the ancient wars. But humanity's actions had shaken the foundations of galactic civilization. If other species began to believe they could successfully resist the Council's authority, the entire system could collapse. "I will not authorize genocide," Webb said firmly. "We will attempt a diplomatic solution first. If that fails, we will consider military options that do not involve the extinction of an entire species." The vote was close, but diplomacy won by a narrow margin. A small fleet would be sent to Earth with an ultimatum: return the captured personnel and submit to Council authority, or face the consequences. General Beck watched the galactic fleet assemble on his long-range scanners. 23 vessels, including some of the most advanced warships in the galaxy. It was an impressive display of force, but not overwhelming. The Council was being cautious, probably hoping that a show of strength would be enough to bring humanity to heel. "Analysis complete, sir," reported his intelligence officer. "We've identified the fleet commander as Admiral Cross of the Rigelian Navy. Standard galactic battle doctrine suggests they'll approach our system in a tight formation. Demand surrender and retreat if we show significant resistance." "They don't know we're not going to surrender," Beck said grimly. "Prepare the surprise we've been saving for them." The secret weapon was humanity's greatest achievement: fully functional faster-than-light vessels built using stolen alien technology. The galaxy assumed that developing FTL travel took centuries of gradual advancement. They had no idea that a species with access to working examples could reverse engineer the technology in decades. 3 human vessels dropped out of hyperspace behind the approaching galactic fleet. The Council ships spun around in shock, their sensors struggling to identify the new arrivals. The vessels were clearly of human design, but they shouldn't exist. "Attention Galactic Fleet," came the transmission from the lead human ship. "You are entering sovereign Earth space without permission. Reverse course immediately or face the consequences." Admiral Cross stared at his displays in disbelief. Not only had humanity developed FTL travel, but they had managed to position vessels behind his fleet without being detected. His formation was designed to project power against a planet-bound enemy, not to fight a mobile fleet in open space. "This is Admiral Cross of the Galactic Council Navy," he transmitted back. "You will surrender immediately and release our captured personnel." The human response was swift and decisive. Energy weapons lanced out from the 3 vessels, striking the Council ships with devastating accuracy. The attacks were precisely targeted, disabling engines and weapon systems without destroying the vessels entirely. Within minutes, half the Galactic fleet was crippled and drifting. "We warned you," came the human transmission. "Earth is no longer a quiet world. Return to your masters and tell them that humanity will not be conquered. The next fleet you send will not be treated so." Gently, Admiral Cross ordered a retreat, his remaining vessels limping back toward galactic space. The message was clear: humanity was not the primitive species the galaxy had assumed. They were a technological equal with the will and ability to defend themselves. General Beck watched the galactic fleet disappear into hyperspace and allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The first test was complete, and humanity had passed with flying colors, but this was just the beginning. The galaxy would not accept this humiliation quietly, and the next response would be far more aggressive. "Sir, we're receiving priority transmissions from our deep space monitoring stations," reported his communications officer. "The Council is mobilizing battle fleets from across the galaxy. It looks like they're planning a full-scale invasion." Beck nodded grimly. The reckoning was coming, and humanity would need every advantage they could muster. The quiet world was about to become very loud indeed. The merchant vessel Galactic Trader dropped out of hyperspace near the edge of the Proxima system, its cargo holds filled with rare minerals bound for the core worlds. Captain Stone stood on the bridge of the disguised human warship, watching her prey through stolen sensors. The alien crew had no idea they were being hunted by an enemy that looked exactly like them. "Identification codes are holding steady," reported her tactical officer. "They're treating us as just another cargo hauler." Stone nodded, adjusting the synthetic skin that covered her human features. The biological disguise was perfect, allowing her team to move freely through galactic society while their true nature remained hidden. Similar operations were taking place across human space as Admiral Foster's expansion plan moved into its next phase. The Galactic Trader was more than just a cargo vessel. Its computer systems contained detailed star charts, trade route information, and communication protocols that would be invaluable to the human war effort. More importantly, its crew included a Rigelian naval officer traveling under diplomatic cover. "Prepare for boarding," Stone ordered. "Remember, we need prisoners and data. Minimize damage to the ship itself." The attack came without warning. Human vessels materialized around the merchant ship, their weapons trained on the bridge and engine sections. The trader's shields barely had time to activate before targeted energy beams disabled its defensive systems. "This is Captain Stone of the Earth Defense Force," she announced over the communication channel. "Surrender immediately and you will not be harmed. Resist, and we will take what we need from your wreckage." The alien captain's face appeared on the main screen, his expression showing a mixture of fear and confusion. "Earth Defense Force? That's impossible. Humans don't have interstellar capability. We have many capabilities your people don't know about," Stone replied. "Your choice is simple. Surrender now, or join the other vessels that thought they could resist us." The boarding operation was swift and professional. Human Marines in powered armor secured the ship while technical specialists downloaded every byte of data from the vessel's computers. The crew was taken prisoner, their personal communicators confiscated, and their ship claimed as a prize of war. Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. The Arcturus research station vanished overnight, its staff disappearing without a trace. A Centauri military outpost went silent, its automated distress beacon the only sign that something had gone wrong. Trade convoys began disappearing along the outer rim routes, their cargo and crew simply vanishing into space. The psychological impact was devastating. Worlds that had known peace for centuries suddenly faced the reality of an enemy that could strike anywhere without warning. The galactic communication networks buzzed with reports of human attacks, each one demonstrating capabilities that shouldn't exist. Admiral Foster commanded the operation from his flagship, the Defiance, hidden in the asteroid field of a dead system. His fleet of 30 vessels represented the largest military force humanity had ever assembled, but they were just the tip of the spear. Across human space, hidden bases were producing more ships while captured alien facilities provided intelligence. and resources. Status report, Foster requested as his officers gathered around the holographic display. Phase 2 is proceeding ahead of schedule, reported his intelligence chief. We've captured or destroyed over 60 alien vessels in the past month. Our deep insertion teams have established monitoring posts in 12 systems, and we're receiving real-time intelligence from the core worlds. The intelligence operation was humanity's greatest achievement. Using stolen identity codes and biological disguises, human agents had infiltrated every level of galactic society. They worked as traders, technicians, and even low-level government officials. The galaxy's open borders and trusting nature made infiltration almost trivially easy. What about the Council's response? Foster asked. They're mobilizing everything they have, replied his tactical officer. Our estimates suggest they're assembling a fleet of over 2,000 vessels. They're calling it the Grand Fleet, and they're planning to use it to sterilize Earth. Foster studied the intelligence reports, his mind racing through possibilities. 2,000 ships was far more than humanity could face in direct combat, but direct combat was never the plan. The galaxy's military doctrine was centuries out of date, designed for fighting other civilized species that followed the same rules. Of engagement, initiate Phase 3, he ordered. Target their supply lines, communication networks, and command structure. I want them blind, deaf, and starving before they reach Earth. The new phase of the war was unlike anything the galaxy had ever experienced. Human teams struck at logistics centers, destroying supply depots and capturing transport vessels. Communication relays were sabotaged, leaving fleet commanders unable to coordinate their forces. Most devastating of all, human agents began targeting the families and homes of senior military officers. Commander Park led a team of infiltrators on the core world of Vega Prime, the galaxy's political and military center. Her mission was to plant surveillance devices in the homes of key council members and gather intelligence on their personal lives. The information would be used to identify weaknesses and pressure points that could be exploited later. Remember, we're maintenance workers doing routine repairs, Park reminded her team as they approached the residential district. Stay in character, complete the mission, and get out clean. The residential area was a monument to galactic prosperity. Elegant homes surrounded by gardens filled with exotic plants from across the galaxy. The residents lived in comfort and safety, protected by the assumption that war was something that happened to other, less civilized species. Park's team worked quickly, installing micro-devices that would monitor communications and movement patterns. They gathered personal information about family members, daily routines, and security procedures. The galaxy's elite had no idea they were being watched by an enemy that understood the importance of intelligence gathering. Target acquired, reported as she photographed classified documents left carelessly on a desk. Council Director Webb's personal files include detailed information about fleet movements and strategic planning. The operation was a complete success, but it was just one of hundreds taking place across the galaxy. Human intelligence networks were mapping every weakness, every vulnerability, every pressure point that could be exploited. The galaxy's leaders were learning that their comfortable assumptions about warfare were dangerously outdated. Back on the Defiance, Admiral Foster reviewed the latest intelligence reports. The Grand Fleet was still assembling, but its commanders were already showing signs of stress. Supply shortages were forcing delays, communication failures were creating confusion, and the constant threat of human attack was affecting morale. Sir, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth, reported his communications officer. General Beck is requesting permission to begin Phase 4, Foster smiled grimly. Phase 4 was the final preparation before the ultimate confrontation. Human forces would reveal their true strength and force the galaxy to commit everything they had to a single, decisive battle. It was dangerous, but it was also humanity's best chance to end the war on their terms. Permission granted, Foster replied. Tell General Beck that the hunt is about to become a war. The galaxy was about to learn that the quiet world on the outer rim had become something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. Humanity's silence had been preparation, and now they were ready to speak with a voice that would shake the stars themselves. The age of galactic complacency was ending, and the age of human dominance was about to begin. The battle for Earth's destiny began not with the roar of weapons, but with the quiet hum of computers analyzing incoming data. Admiral Foster stood in the command center of the Defiance, watching as his tactical displays showed the approach of the largest military force in galactic history. 2,000 ships from dozens of worlds, all united by a single purpose, the complete destruction of humanity. Range to enemy fleet, 4 million kilometers in closing, reported his tactical officer. They're maintaining standard formation just like we predicted. Foster nodded, his fingers drumming against the command console. The Grand Fleet was impressive, but it was also predictable. Galactic military doctrine hadn't changed in centuries because it didn't need to. Most conflicts were resolved through diplomacy or brief shows of force. The galaxy had forgotten how to fight a real war. Signal all units, Foster ordered. Begin. Operation Checkmate. Across the solar system, human forces moved into position. The battle plan was complex, requiring precise timing and perfect coordination. But humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their stolen technology or hidden bases. It was their understanding of how their enemy thought. Admiral Voss commanded the Grand Fleet from the bridge of the massive battleship, Galactic Pride. The vessel was a monument to galactic engineering, armed with weapons that could crack planets, and protected by shields that had never been breached. Around him, the greatest fleet in galactic history moved in perfect formation toward their target. Admiral, we're detecting some unusual readings from the outer planets, reported his sensor. Officer, it looks like there might be defensive installations on some of the moons. Voss studied the tactical display, noting the scattered energy signatures throughout the solar system. The humans had clearly been busy since their first contact deception, but their efforts seemed pathetically inadequate compared to the force arrayed against them. Maintain course, he ordered. We'll deal with any defensive installations after we've secured the primary target. The first sign that something was wrong came when the Grand Fleet's communication systems began experiencing interference. Messages between ships became garbled, coordination signals were lost, and the carefully planned formation began to drift apart. Voss assumed it was some kind of primitive jamming system, but the truth was far more disturbing, hidden throughout. The solar system, human intelligence gathering stations were broadcasting false orders using captured galactic military codes. Ships received contradictory instructions, false status reports, and misleading tactical information. The Grand Fleet's greatest strength, its unified command structure, was being turned against them. Admiral, we're receiving priority orders. From Fleet Command, reported his communications officer. They're ordering us to split our forces and secure the outer planets before advancing on Earth. Voss frowned. The order made no tactical sense, but it bore all the correct authentication. Codes. Similar messages were reaching other fleet commanders, each one designed to fragment the massive force into smaller, more manageable groups. Confirm those orders, Voss demanded, but his communications officer was already shaking his head. Sir, I can't reach Fleet Command. All long-range communications are down. The Grand Fleet began to break apart as individual commanders followed the false orders they had received. Some ships moved to investigate the outer planets, others held position, and a few attempted to establish independent communication networks. The perfect formation that had inspired fear across the galaxy dissolved into chaos. That was when the real battle began. Human vessels that had been hiding in asteroid fields and behind planetary shadows suddenly revealed themselves. They struck, with surgical precision, targeting command ships and communication nodes. The attacks were coordinated perfectly, hitting the fleet's weakest points just as it was most vulnerable. The battleship Galactic Pride shuddered as energy weapons struck its shields. Voss spun around in shock, watching as human vessels appeared on his tactical display. The ships were smaller than his own, but they moved with deadly purpose and seemed to know exactly where to strike. Return fire, he ordered, but his gunners were already struggling to target the fast-moving human vessels. The enemy ships used hit-and-run tactics, striking hard and then disappearing before the fleet could respond effectively. Admiral Foster watched the battle unfold from his command center, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. The Grand Fleet was impressive, but it was fighting the wrong kind of war. They expected formal battle lines, predictable tactics, and honorable combat. Instead, they were facing an enemy that understood the true nature of warfare. Phase 2, initiate, he ordered. The second wave of attacks came from an unexpected direction. Human vessels that had been disguised as disabled ships suddenly came alive, their weapons targeting the Grand Fleet supply vessels and support craft. The careful logistics that kept the massive fleet operational began to collapse as fuel ships exploded and ammunition transports were captured. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures from the planet's surface," reported Foster's sensor officer. "It looks like they're charging some kind of planetary defense system." The energy signatures were real, but they weren't defensive weapons. Hidden beneath Earth's surface, massive transmission arrays were broadcasting detailed intelligence about the Grand Fleet's movements, weaknesses, and command structure to every human vessel in the system. The planet itself had become a command and control center, coordinating the battle in real time. Admiral Voss realized the scope of his predicament as reports flooded in from across his scattered fleet. Ship after ship reported communication. Failures, surprise attacks, and impossible tactical situations. The humans weren't just fighting better than expected, they seemed to know his every move before he made it. "Admiral, incoming priority message from the human fleet," reported his communications officer. Foster's face appeared on the main screen, his expression calm and confident. "Admiral Voss, I believe we've made our point. Your fleet is scattered, your communications are compromised, and your supply lines are cut. I'm offering you one chance to surrender with honor." "Never," Voss snarled. "The Galactic Council does not negotiate with primitives." "We're not primitives," Foster replied quietly. "We're the species that's been studying your weaknesses for decades while you assumed we were irrelevant. Your tactical codes, your ship designs, your battle doctrine, even your personal command style. We know it all because you never bothered to hide it from what you thought was a developing world." The truth hit Voss like a physical blow. The humans hadn't just been lucky or clever. They had been planning this battle for years, maybe decades. Every piece of technology they had stolen, every agent they had infiltrated, every communication they had intercepted had been building toward this moment. "Last chance, Admiral," Foster continued. "Surrender now, and your crews will be treated with respect. Continue fighting, and we'll show you what human warfare really looks like." Voss cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. "Target." Their command ship, full spread of quantum torpedoes. The Galactic Pride's weapons erupted in a display of devastating firepower, but the human vessels were no longer where his sensors showed them to be. Electronic warfare systems had been feeding false targeting data to his gunners, while the real enemy ships maneuvered into attack positions. The counterattack came from 6 directions at once. Human vessels emerged from sensor shadows and stealth fields, their weapons aimed at the Pride's critical systems. The massive battleship shields held for a few seconds before collapsing under the coordinated assault. "Sir, we've lost primary power," shouted his engineer. "Hull breaches on 12 decks. We're dead in space." Similar reports were coming in from across the Grand Fleet. The humans had stopped playing games and were systematically destroying every ship that refused to surrender. Their weapons were precise and deadly, targeting exactly the right systems to disable vessels without unnecessary casualties. Admiral Foster watched the battle statistics update on his command display. 60% of the Grand Fleet had been disabled or destroyed. 20% had surrendered. The remaining ships were scattered across the solar system, cut off from each other and running low on supplies. "Sir, Admiral Voss is requesting terms," reported his communications officer. "Put him through," Foster replied. Voss appeared on the screen, his uniform torn and his face showing the strain of defeat. "You win, Admiral. I surrender what remains of my fleet. A wise decision," Foster said. Your surviving personnel will be treated according to galactic conventions, and your ships will be repaired and returned to the Council along with a message. What message? Foster's expression grew serious. That the age of galactic dominance through superior technology is over. Humanity doesn't want to conquer the galaxy, Admiral. We want to change it. 3 months later, President Morgan stood before the assembled delegates in the former Galactic Council chambers on Centrum Prime. The Great Hall was packed with representatives from worlds across the galaxy, all waiting to hear humanity's terms for the new order. The old system was built on the assumption that advanced technology guaranteed superiority, Morgan began. But technology without wisdom, strength without purpose, and power without accountability led to stagnation and complacency, she gestured to the display behind her, showing a map of galactic space with new boundaries and territories. Humanity offers a different path. We will not rule the galaxy, but we will protect it. We will not dictate terms, but we will ensure that no species can threaten the security of others. The response was mixed. Some worlds welcomed humanity's protection, tired of the Council's ineffective leadership. Others resisted, clinging to the old ways. But all understood that the balance of power had shifted permanently. Ambassador Keth, recently released from human custody, stood to address the assembly. I have seen humanity's capabilities firsthand. They possess not just superior technology, but superior understanding of conflict and strategy. The galaxy can fight them and face destruction, or work with them to build something better. The vote was close, but humanity's proposal for a new galactic security arrangement passed by a narrow margin. Earth would establish monitoring stations throughout the galaxy, maintaining the peace through strength rather than diplomacy. Any world that threatened others would face the consequences. Admiral Foster stood on the observation deck of the space station orbiting Centrum Prime, watching as the former Council fleet departed for their home worlds. Many of the captured vessels now bore human modifications and carried mixed crews. The galaxy was changing, whether it wanted to or not. Do you think it will work? Asked his aide, Colonel Hayes. It has to, Foster replied. The galaxy spent too long believing that peace came from everyone being too civilized to fight. We've shown them what happens when that illusion breaks down. Now they understand that real peace comes from being too strong to challenge. Earth had been quiet for millennia, content to remain hidden while the galaxy assumed it was primitive and harmless. But when the time came to act, humanity had proven that the most dangerous enemy was the one you never saw coming. The galaxy would remember this lesson for generations to come, and the quiet world would never be underestimated again.